Do you worry that other people notice your every mistake and think you're a total screw up and loser? You're not alone. A lot of people feel that way. This is a part in your inner world that is very paranoid. And the truth is, you are being watched, just not in the way that you think you are. And in this video, I want to share how I learned that I really am being watched, but not in the way that I think it. I used to have this very paranoid part in my inner world. It's still there. I've just changed my relationship to it. But where I almost felt larger than life, right? Like that everything I did was under a microscope and people noticed if I said something wrong, if I did something wrong. And I would spend time when I was young, like kind of beating myself up for things that I said or did in hindsight, like earlier in the day or last week. I'd kind of cringe and be like, oh. And I know from working with many, many people that I'm not alone. Here's the thing. You're not being watched in that way. Like I said, you are being watched, but not like that. Why? Well, because as a human species, we are extremely self-absorbed. And when we're under stress, which we are at least pre-COVID number 70% of the time, we are even less likely to notice what's going on around us, because what stress does is it creates a very inward focus. We're thinking about ourselves. We're thinking about the way that we look, the way that we sound, what other people are watching. We're judging ourselves most of the time. Secondly, the other way this gets distorted is that when we think that we screwed up and everybody knows it, we have something in our mind called the reticular activating system that goes and looks around for proof that that's what actually happened. And so we'll look for all these things, every single cockeyed look someone gives us, every single whatever that we get from someone. Could be for any reason. We have no idea why they're looking at us funny or saying what they're saying, but we decide because we had that thought, we need to reaffirm that thought. It's because we're an idiot and they know it. And the more that we do that, the more we see that. And so our focus gets very, very narrow. When we're under stress, and if you're worrying that people are saying things about you or that you screwed up, means you're under stress. Now your focus is very narrow and you're looking for all the ways to make that true. What if you shifted your attention? What if you shifted your focus to everything you did right that day? Does it ever occur to us when we're in the midst of running through the diatribe of things that we did wrong or that we screwed up to think about what we did right? You should practice that for a day, because what you'll find is you probably have a much, much larger list. But our brains are so habituated into thinking about what we did wrong that that's all we ever feed ourselves. So you're not being watched the way that you think you're being watched. So here's how we are being watched. And unlike when we screwed up and we think everybody sees it right away, this is a longer burn. We're being watched over time. People are picking up what we're putting down. And this is how I found that out. A few months ago, I got this text from my son. Out of the blue, he sent me this text while he was out of town. Don't know if you need to hear this or not, but I got the inspiration to say it. I know going and doing your own thing with posting on social media and starting a podcast has had its ups and downs for you, and you've doubted yourself at times. Even if you don't reach anybody and no one hears your message, which is not true, I know you already have. Seeing you go all in and put yourself out there has been a big inspiration to me. It has shown me how much courage you have and that I myself can do the same thing. You are my role model. Now, this is from a kid who had a lot of social anxiety and I would say was very, very shy. I was always pushing him out the door, pushing him, go do this. Why are you worried about this? Why do you think this is going to whatever? But I wasn't out in my life either. I wasn't out living my life at that time. I looked like I was maybe, but I wasn't. And this didn't happen overnight, right? So sometimes I'll share something like that with someone. They'll be like, oh, you're so lucky. You're da. No. This didn't happen overnight. This kid has been watching me now for the last 3 years, probably, as I have grown and evolved. Not even that. I mean, I would say the last 15 years as I've been growing and evolving, right? Every step I take to push myself and become a different person and try to be better, every time I lose it and I then come back and say, oh, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that, I shouldn't have done that, whatever it is. I make mistakes 1,000 times a day. And sometimes I apologize for them and I turn around and I make the same mistake right over again, right? Like, it's not, this is a process. Life is a journey. And you can imagine that when I read that, all my self-doubt all my fear about, am I being heard? Is this going anywhere? Why am I doing this? Everybody already does this. There's 20,000 podcasts. There's many, many better thought leaders than me. There's so much. Why do I bother? When I read that, oh, that's why I bother. That's why. And I'll tell you what, I actually had the thought, even if I never do anything, even if you never do anything that you're proud of or that you never feel like you ever get out of your own way, what if the way that you went about your life, what if the journey that you went on was enough to model for your child or your coworker or your employee or someone else that you get out there when you're scared and it gave them the courage to be someone different in the world? For me, that's enough. That was enough. When I was young, it wasn't enough, right? I wanted to be this. I wanted to be that. Now it's like, you know what? Hey, there are things I got in the oven. There are things I'm doing that I hope go somewhere, and I don't even know where I hope they're going. There's things that are happening. But if they don't, but someone's watching me and they're taking that from me, a young person, and it's giving them courage, that is worth it. So you're not being watched the way that you think you're being watched by minute basis. But when we show up for ourselves, when we show up for ourselves, even though we're afraid, even though we might feel guilty, even though we might feel selfish, even though all these things, because I could tell you a whole story about how neglected my kids are because I get obsessed with work. I could tell you that story. That's not what he said. That's not what he sees. That's not what he's looking at. He's looking at something else. He's looking through his own eyes from himself saying, gee, I'm really shy. This is scary for me to do these things. Wow. And I know it's scary for mom too, but she's still doing it. And it's really making me think that I can do it. So they're not watching us for every screw up, but over time they are paying attention to what we did to show up for ourselves and put ourselves out in the world. However that is for you, it doesn't have to be a big way. You can go out in the world just by being really present with the grocery store clerk. You can go out in the world by following a passion. I don't care if that passion is knitting. If you are fully embodying who you are, that's what the world needs to see more of. That's what our children need to see more of. We need more of people who are embodying what they love, their joy, who they are, and overcoming the fear that we all have of being cast out, of not belonging, of being judged, of doing something wrong, about making a mistake, all this crazy stuff that we internalized when we were young, that we were conditioned into evolutionarily to do. We put that aside and we take step forwards anyway, and people are watching. It used to be that I would lose my ever-loving mind when my kids were little. I was a total control freak. I was constantly angry, resentful, bitter, whatever it was. Something would go wrong and I would just lose it. I don't do that anymore. Why? Because I've worked really, really hard to be a different person. And there are people in your life, I can tell you, that aren't going to notice. They won't, because they've got you pigeonholed. They've got you in an old view of you that they have, that they're very attached to. And they don't no longer see you enough, or they no longer can see you outside of their own lens of you. And that's fine. Nobody has to know that. You know that. And the people that are closest to you know that. So whether you're being your best self out in the world professionally, or you're being your best self in your interactions inside your house, people are watching. And they're saying, wow, I really like how that person handled this situation. Wow, I know this person was scared to death and they still went out and did it. And they're not saying, and they screwed this up and they said this line wrong and they did that wrong. They're not saying that. They're saying, gosh, they went out and they did it and they made a mistake. I can do it. If they can go do that and make a mistake, I can do that if I'm allowed to make mistakes. What if we were all allowed to make mistakes? What if we weren't so worried about what other people thought? People, by the way, who half the time are meaningless to us to begin with. What if we weren't so afraid of what other people thought? And instead, you were thinking about, how do I want to behave that I want people to see? How do I want to act that I want people to notice? Am I taking care of myself? Am I saying no when I mean no? Am I getting extra rest when I need it? Am I responding calmly instead of going off the handle? And all of these things, whatever they are, am I taking risks? They take time. They don't happen overnight. You don't wake up and say, well, I'm going to be a great person today, and do all the things so that when people watch me, I'm doing it all right. You already are a great person. You already are. You just need to remember who you are. And when you remember who you are and you take the time to have some grace for humanity, for what it's like to be a human, to be under stress, to have things happen that go wrong, and to react in ways that you don't want to, and to have a paranoid part that thinks people are watching you, and to react out of that, it's all fine. It's all fine. Can you at some point recognize it and say, oh, you know what? In this moment, I'm going to try a little different. Or tomorrow, I'm going to take another step. Or I'm terrified, but I'm doing this right now anyway. Or I'm really angry, but I'm not going to say anything because I'm just going to practice getting perspective first. These are the things that over time people notice. But more than anything, they're the things that make you be able to lay your head down at night and say, you know what? I didn't do everything right. I didn't do everything perfect, but I did the best I could. I'm good. I'm good. So maybe if we all thought more about what people are actually watching us for and less about what we are paranoid they're watching us for but aren't really watching us for, it would give us pause to maybe think about who we want to be today. And while you're thinking about who you'd like to be today, if this was useful, please hit the subscribe button or share this, because when you share and subscribe and support this podcast, that's what gets it into other people's hands. I've heard this on podcasts that have millions of viewers. They're like, oh my God, people still don't hit like or subscribe. And that's what allows all of the people that are doing the work that I'm doing to keep doing it. The more traction we can get, the better it is and the more supportive it is to the podcast. And that's all we ever really want. So please support by liking or subscribing or sharing, and we'll see you next time.